and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 2716A, and today's date is March 2nd, 2022, and the title of the episode is Fed Powell just said the quiet part out loud. Tock. Let's talk about protecting your wealth. If you watch regularly, you'll know that Noble Gold is one of our sponsors. They now have thousands of clients who found the secret of gold and silver for their retirement plans here, and for the month of March, with any qualified IRA above $20,000, you'll get a 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin or a 5-ounce America the Beautiful silver coin for anything over $50,000. You know what to do. Call 877-646-5347. That is 877-646-5347, or go to noblegoldinvestments.com or click the link in the description. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private Western Central Bank, they are putting as much pressure as they possibly can on Russia. And you can see that they're using this entire event to try to push their Great Reset, their Green New Deal. And we can see that oil prices, they're skyrocketing right now. And yes, they're going to be using this to convince the people that this is something we have to do. And they're basing it all on the crisis in Ukraine. But once again, this is going to fail, and it's going to fail big. Now, something very interesting, Fed Powell, he was in front of Congress today, and he said a couple of things that were very interesting. I think he said the quiet part out loud, that the United States, the Federal Reserve note that we have here today, well, that doesn't have to be the only reserve currency. There can be other currencies. But if there are other currencies, it would diminish the U.S. dominance in the world. Now, that is a very interesting statement. Why would he bring this up? That's very interesting. We'll be talking about that in just a sec. But let's talk about what's happening with the oil. I do believe oil is over $110 a barrel, and we're most likely going to see $6, $7 a gallon. Maybe even more in some places, a little bit less in other places. But we can see all the same leaders. They're doing the same thing as they normally do. They're out there saying, yes, we support this. We're going to stop the importation of Russian oil. And we had Trudeau out there, and he's letting everyone know that we're ready to ban Russian oil. The problem is that Canada, they haven't imported Russian crude oil in years. So is this going to benefit anyone in Canada? Or is it going to hurt anyone in Canada? Is it going to do anything in Canada? No. Basically, he just came out and said it and made it sound really great. It's almost like Biden in this country, where he's the resident in the White House, letting everyone know that he's a tough guy, that he's going to stand toe-to-toe with Putin, and he's placing sanctions on Russia, even though the sanctions really don't do anything. But while he's placing sanctions on Russia, the United States is importing around $70 million per day of oil imports. So in other words, during these 7 days since Putin has gone into Ukraine, we have sent Putin about, $500 million while placing sanctions on him? So let's go a little bit back in time here. In 2021, the U.S. imported an average of about 209,000 barrels per day of crude oil and 500,000 of other petroleum products from Russia. So oil is currently what? About $106, $110 per barrel. So if oil is high because of the Ukraine crisis right now, how much is Putin bringing in? Is Biden really tough on Putin, or is he paying him off? It seems that he's continually paying him off, and it seems that the United States, we didn't have to do this because the United States was energy independent. We really didn't need Russian oil. But here we are buying Russian oil. Biden, he doesn't have to place sanctions on Russia. All he has to do is bring back the Keystone Pipeline, reinstate the leases, and all of a sudden you have the sanctions. Why doesn't he want to do this? Because remember, the deep state players, the World Economic Forum, they're trying to use this crisis. They're trying to use this crisis. They want a war. They're not going to get a war. They're trying to build this up. They're not getting anything they want. They're trying to do this because they're still pushing their same goal, bringing us into the Green New Deal. If Biden went ahead and said, okay, you know something, let's start up the Keystone Pipeline, let's reinstate the leases, well, that would make the United States energy independent. We wouldn't be dependent on oil. We wouldn't need solar panels, wind generators, and all the other things. So they're not going to do this. And I think Trump and the Patriots, I think they knew this from the very beginning. And if we go back in time, I do believe that Trump, he kept saying these ridiculous sanctions because he knew Putin, he was going to have his funds to go into Ukraine, to wipe out the money laundering, to wipe out the biolabs, to wipe out everything. And we can see here how it's completely playing out. Now, once again, we have all these nations saying we're going to be removing Russia from the SWIFT system. We're going to put a lot of pressure on Russia. We're going to place sanctions on them. Well, right now, Russia is now exclusively a ruble country. So they have to use rubles for everything. No foreign currency or anything like that. I do believe they might make a switch. They might say, you know something? We might move into Bitcoin and we might transact business, and we might transact business around the world using Bitcoin. So if you like to accept Bitcoin because everyone accepts it, just like gold and silver, everyone knows what gold and silver is. Countries, yes, they have different currency for their country. But if they just use Bitcoin, well, El Salvador can accept it. The United States can accept it. Any country could accept it. Let's talk about protecting your wealth. If you watch regularly, you'll know that Noble Gold is one of our sponsors. They now have thousands of clients who found the secret of gold and silver for their retirement plans here. And for the month of March, with any qualified IRA above $20,000, you'll get a 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin or a 5-ounce America the Beautiful silver coin for anything over $50,000. You know what to do. Call 877-646-5347. That is 877-646-5347. Or go to noblegoldinvestments.com or click the link in the description. And there's no problem there. I wonder if we're going to see a transition come in very, very soon. Now, the other thing that's very interesting about all of this and everything that's going on, I do believe it's to take down the private Western Central Bank. It's to destroy their system that we have today. Right now, their system is imploding. They know that it's on life support. They know that they needed a war to cover up the transition into the Great Reset, or they needed to shut down the global economic system with the pandemic, which all failed. But now they have no choice, because the system is completely imploding on itself. And what's very interesting is that we see the gold nations, the nations with a lot of commodities, they're banding together. And it's funny because Trump spoke to Putin, spoke to Xi, went out to India, spoke to Modi, and it seems that all of this is building up right now. Now, Fed Powell, he said something very, very interesting. He says it's possible to have more than one reserve currency in the world. So he's out there saying, yes, we can have more than one reserve currency, but this would diminish the U.S. dominance in the world. But we can do it. Now, this is shocking because remember, he's head of the Federal Reserve. They want the reserve currency. Why would he come out and start saying this? I do believe things are in motion right now, because think about what has been happening. During Trump's time in the White House, we know that the Fed, they were raising rates to bring down the economy. They were going to blame it all on Trump. And they started doing this in 2018, 2019. And Trump called them out on it and said, listen, we can't have you raise rates. All the other countries around the world are lowering their rates. They're pushing stimulus and you're doing the opposite. This will not make us competitive. So you need to reverse this. And yes, the central bank started to freeze their interest rate hikes, and then they started to reverse it. Now, fast forward to the resident in the White House, Trump warned that we're going to see inflation. He did this back in 2020. He said inflation's going to destroy the economy. Remember, inflation is the fiat destroyer, because once you see inflation and it takes off, you really can't stop it. And everyone realizes that the fiat currency is worth absolutely nothing. And if it's worth nothing and people are seeing that its value is dropping, what does the Fed have to do? They're kind of forced into it, because either they allow inflation to rise and then people see, wow, I had a $10 bill. It's worth like $2 right now. I can't buy the same exact thing. People really notice this. So they can let this go and they can just allow the inflation to hit, which is going to destroy the fiat system. Or they can raise rates, but we know what happens when they raise rates. The system comes down. The system implodes. This is what they were trying to do during the first part of Trump's time in the White House. They did this back in 2005, 2006. We had the crash in 2008, 2009. I do believe Trump has trapped them, and really there's no way out of this. They're going to have to either not do anything or raise rates. Both options destroy the private Western central bank system. One a little bit sooner than the other, but they both do the same thing. Now, is Fed Powell out there letting everyone know, listen, we don't have to be the reserve currency anymore? Because remember, when everything's all said and done, there will be no reserve currency. What will there be? Maybe there's Bitcoin. Maybe there's gold. Yes, internally in the country, there might be the currency of that nation. Maybe people will take an alternative to Bitcoin or do something like that, and they'll use that. But we can see that this is already starting the narrative, saying, listen, we don't have to keep it this way. We can change it. Remember, this is the way the private Western Central Bank set it up. They set it up to be so we'd have a centralized currency. They set it up so during World War II and after the World War II, they set up Bretton Woods, and this is when the United States became the reserve currency of the world. And then moving towards 1971, they took us off the gold standard so they can go full fiat. During 2008, 2009, they took complete control with stimulus, controlling the rates and everything else. Now he's letting everyone know, we don't have to do this anymore. We don't have to use the Federal Reserve note around the world. There can be other countries that have other currencies. And I think they've already started the narrative to bring down the private Western Central Bank system and introduce other currencies. Now, yes, the World Economic Forum, the Rothschilds, are going to try to introduce their currency, the central bank digital currency. Yes, they're going to try to push this. Yes, they're going to try to push like they push everything else. But in the end, the people are going to see the truth. I mean, think about what people have been seeing already. They saw that, hey, wait a minute. These leaders, the banks right now, they can just shut your accounts without committing a crime, without anything. They can just do it because they want to do it, because they don't like what you're doing. They don't like that you're protesting peacefully. So they can just shut down your accounts. Look at Russia. The everyday people in Russia. Why would you shut down their accounts? They're not doing anything. They're just the people of the country. And people see this very, very clearly now. They understand this. Think about Mike Lindell here in the United States. They wrote a letter to him saying that we're going to shut your account down. We don't want to do business with you anymore. We don't like your politics. We don't like what you're saying. You see, as people see more and more of this, they start to realize that the system that we're in today is not the system that we should keep. There needs to be another system where these individuals are not in control. Can you imagine? Forget about money. If they said, listen, I don't like your political views. You were protesting, even though it was peaceful. We're going to shut your electric. We're going to shut your gas. Now, when you decide to fall in line, that's when we'll turn it on. Can you imagine if it's in the middle of winter? So this is the control the people have. Why do you think the utilities were, like electric and gas and water, they were made public utilities? That means they can't shut it off. Is currency like that now? No. No, it's not. And this is very, very dangerous to people around the world. And I do believe what we're seeing right now is a structure change that is coming. And this is just the beginning steps of all of this. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.